reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "The dominion of heaven is like a buried treasure found in a field. The ones who discovered it hid it again, and rejoicing at the discovery, went and sold all their possessions and bought that field." Again, the dominion of heaven is like a merchant's search for fine pearls. When one pearl of great price was found, the merchant went back and sold everything and bought it. Again, the dominion of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, which collects fish of every kind. When it is full, they haul it ashore and sit down to put what is good into buckets. What is bad, they throw away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will go out and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Do you understand all these things? They answered, yes. Jesus replied, "Then every scribe who has been instructed in the dominion of heaven is like the head of the household, who brings from the storeroom both the new and the old." The good news of salvation. While today's readings vary, a theme seems to emerge. In the first reading, we discover that God cared for unselfish Solomon and gave him an understanding heart, helping him to be his best self, the leader he was meant to be. In the second, Paul reminds the early Christians and us that all things work for good for those who love God. Finally, Jesus tells us that if we wholeheartedly seek the kingdom, the dominion of heaven, and open ourselves to God, we are part of the kingdom. If we do not, we wail and grind our teeth. What appears to unite these three passages is a reminder to embrace the kingdom, to recognize God's ever-present gift of self to us, to remember that God loves and cares for us. Theologians teach us another word for God's gift of self to us: grace. Our liturgy preparation group found our earthly kingdom to mean our learning to love and living who we are called to be. So how does all of this work in today's time, when wailing and grinding of teeth seem quite appropriate? When we see a black man calling for his mother while a policeman extinguishes his breath, at a time when our country has closed the asylum door on those who often face violence and death in their native lands, where the coronavirus has shoved us down a slide to illness and to isolation, with a halt to hugs between generations, and with people dying alone. In these circumstances, how do we feel God's grace? How do we feel God's love for us? How do we embrace who we are called to be? Years ago, in a different time, I had asked the same question. I had a busy husband, 3 children at home, and a corporate job. After many agonized journal entries where I wondered how I could possibly continue to suck from the corporate teat while my family needed me, I quit my job cold turkey. I cut our income in half and stepped into one of the hottest summers on record, squabbling siblings, and mountains of laundry. How could this be so hard, I wondered. I thought I was doing the right thing. Why didn't I feel more sustained by God's love for me? I drank gallons of spiritual literature and began a project interviewing stay-at-home moms and dads to find out how they did what they did. I thought if I was struggling, maybe others were too. Perhaps I could discover strategies that we could all share. I also began to paint in watercolor. I learned a lesson about love that constantly needs refreshing. Before I interviewed each mom or dad, I took deep breaths to clear my head. During the interview, I worked to set myself aside and to listen not just with my ears, but with every cell of my body. An odd thing happened. Not only did stories pour from the people I interviewed, but I found I liked every single person and had empathy for them. Occasionally, I would later meet one of these people in a more social environment. I discovered that sometimes I didn't have the same affinity for the person that I'd had in the interview. Perhaps in those interviews, I had entered the kingdom where we are all one. By chance, in setting myself aside, I had echoed Solomon and opened myself up to God's love. Later, in more ordinary social interactions, with a deeper concern for myself, I stood outside the dominion of heaven. My painting project taught similar lessons. Before painting, I had simply seen flowers. Now I spent hours sketching and painting a single flower. I knew every petal, every contour. I appreciated every shade of light and dark and color. I felt both at peace and united to God's kingdom. Scientists have measured the brain waves of artists at work and found that they are identical to those of monks in meditation. The phenomenon emerges in all kinds of art. The writer Madeleine L'Engle says, quote, "We are hurt, we are lonely, and we turn to music or words, and as compensation beyond all price, we are given glimpses of the world on the other side of time and space." Unquote. It appears that when we put ourselves aside, as Solomon did, deeply appreciating God's kingdom, here on earth we possess the pearl of great price. We are who we're meant to be. We enter the world on the other side of time and space. We realize God's love for us. In our current lonely times, what a gift that could be.